Welcome, everyone, to the Love Patterson Podcast. Today we have Kendra Mora as our co-host, myself as the host, Derek Cortez, and we have our guest.
Chief Casey Hill, Patterson Police Services. How you doing?
Wonderful. So, I'm actually pretty excited for this podcast. I was doing a lot of research on it. I was really excited to get to know our new chief of police, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, tell us a bit about yourself, kind of like where you grew up, where you went to school and stuff like that, so people can get to know who you are.
Sure. First and foremost, I grew up in an inner city town that not a lot of people like, but is home to me, Stockton, California. I went to Stagg High School alumni. I was there my whole life. I'm a generational law enforcement officer. I started out just on ride-alongs with my dad when I was 10 and 12 years old, and just fell in love with the job in and of itself. But although I grew up in the inner city, I have a passion for the outdoors, and I love to fish, and I love to hunt, and I love to play sports, and I love exercise. I love being out of the house and out hikes and so on and so forth. So I got the opportunity to go to college. Had to work hard for it, though. I didn't have a scholarship or anything like that. I had to put myself through college and just got my education. And not a lot of people know that I actually set out on a path to be a school teacher for a short period of time before I became. And you should have saw the frowns that I got around the dinner table when I said I was not going to be a cop, But I was a school teacher for a while, and with all honesty, I wanted to get into law enforcement, but my home agency where my dad and my brother worked, San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office, they weren't hiring at the time. So I came to Stanislaus County with every intention of turning around and leaving and going back home. And I absolutely love this county, this place. I fell in love with the job in and of itself in this county, and this is home for me, and especially Patterson, as I found my way out here earlier in my career. So I have a beautiful wife and a 17-year-old daughter who's a high school athlete. She's getting ready to graduate this year and go on to college. She's a cross-country runner and a track runner. So that's kind of my back history and my story. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm from Stockton too.
Oh.
I came from Stockton over here to Patterson. What was it like for you growing up over there?
It was different being, just like I said, Stockton is Stockton. To me, it's home, but it is inner city, and you kind of had to be cautious of your surroundings and the people you hung out with. And to me, it gave me a better understanding of what life is like for people in an inner city and underprivileged neighborhoods and stuff like that. It gave me a good, solid understanding. Stockton was, a lot of people talk about it. I'll say it again. To me, it's home. I feel safe there. In going back there, and I like to visit as much as I can. So I had to mind my P's and Q's around town. I really had to become, for lack of a better term, street smart very early on, and be cautious of what I was doing. So absolutely.
Around what time was that when you were growing up? What year was that?
Oh, I graduated high school in 1999. So, okay. Mid-90s, early, 80s, 90s. That's where I was at.
Because I came over here to Patterson like when I was around 12 years old. It's around 2009, and I just remember Stockton was starting to get really bad out there. I remember that Stockton was still it still had like fields in there and stuff like that. But then like once we started transitioning over here, the murder rates started going up and things like that. So I can't really imagine Stockton not being that way. Was that like that for you?
Yeah, to me, it was just always home, right? And I didn't realize what I grew up in until I kind of left, and I saw a different perspective. And then I said, that was kind of a rough upbringing. But I never felt unsafe or something like I had to feel like I had to vacate. If I could move back, I'd move back, tomorrow. And it's just home to me and safe. So I look back at it now and say, it was kind of rough and tumble, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that town.
And so how did you get into your hobbies? Because I know it's inner city, so you're talking a little wilderness, a man's man, right?
Yeah. Just my family upbringing. My dad was a fisherman and a hunter and an outdoorsman, and I continued to do it. It's just my passion. And to be honest with you, in this profession, you have to have an outlet. There's no doubt. If you completely surround yourself in things that just encroach your mentality in this job, and you surround yourself with the worst, at times, the worst part of society. I still fish and hunt every single week, even with my dad still. He's older, and we share time together outside of the job. And to me, it's my outlet. And it's just the way that I went from my family upbringing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So,
Cool.
That's awesome.
So you said that you wanted to become a teacher. Were you anything else before you became a police officer?
yeah, I actually worked for the Stockton Unified School District. I started out as a substitute teacher when I was in college, and then a long-term substitute, and then I enrolled in the impact program, and I was going to be a full-fledged teacher. And then I just I felt like the impacts that I were having, I could have a greater impact as a law enforcement officer. And I honestly, the adrenaline junkie in me just wanted to be have that adrenaline in my workforce, right, and what I wanted to do for a job. So, the funny thing is, later on in my career, I got a chance to be, which was the most pivotal portion of my career, was being a school resource officer here in town, and I got to have the best of both worlds. I was a peace officer and had the ability to work with the youth of this community of Patterson, and it just ultimately aligned well for me. So I just was very fortunate to continue the passion of working with youth in my capacity as a law enforcement.
Okay, cool. So what was it specifically that made you pursue law enforcement? Because I know that you talk about that you want to be a teacher, so that you have that educator portion inside of you, and that adrenaline junkie in you, and then you also have generational officers in your family. So what was it specifically? Was it a moment in your life that you said?
Once you get through the early years of your career, and you get through the adrenaline and the chasing the bad guys and the nights and the weekends and all the fun stuff, once you get through that, I really settled on, and I know this sounds cliche, but it really is true from the heart. The ultimate paycheck in this job is when you get to affect the future of people, and you get to help people. There is no greater satisfaction in life whatsoever than just truly and genuinely seeing people succeed, and you having just the smallest part in that. Whether it was by your enforcement action, or even better, the mentorship levels that you can have in people's life. To me, ultimate paycheck. I've had the opportunity to go to other agencies, go chase Bay Area money, all that other stuff. To me, the ultimate paycheck was the opportunities I had, especially here in this town in Patterson. So to me, that was my ultimate epiphany. I need to continue to help people, whether it's people in this profession, because I trained people at the academy for so long, or just ultimately the community members. That to me is the ultimate paycheck. So that when I got through all the adrenaline stuff, to me, that's home, and that's what I really find peace in still. So.
That's cool, because you've always had kind of like an insight into what it's going to be going into law enforcement. You never really had that I'm watching them on TV, this is what it's like, and it's like fantasy becoming a cop. You know firsthand from your family members that like this is what it's going to be like. I know what I'm getting myself into. So you know full well getting in, right?
Sure. Yeah, when I got into this job, I grew up in the passenger seat of a car, in the patrol car, right? I grew up seeing this stuff going on ride-alongs well before I was even old enough to do so, and seeing the interactions and the camaraderie, the brotherhood amongst cops, man, that you're willing to, matter if you like them or not, you're willing to put your life on the line for that person. To me, that camaraderie and that level of respect that you had amongst the internal workings of the police department and sheriff's office, there's no more nobility than that, than to put your life on the line for your partner and the community. It just sparks something in you that you can't define, right? It's just a raw energy that you can't define. So yeah, I knew full well getting into it, and that's what attracted me. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. And you've been doing this for about 20 years. You started off as a community resource officer.
I did.
And a school resource officer. You were a detective, recruit training officer with the Stanislaus County Sheriff Regional Training Division. And then you oversaw the Regional Training Division as a lieutenant.
I did.
And now you're chief of police.
Yeah.
That's a crazy progression. But you've always stayed in Stanislaus County.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. Stanislaus County. Yeah.
What is it that just kept you here?
Yeah, well, when I got here, the opportunities for the young people, and that when I got into this job, I didn't have people saying you need to do 10 years before you can do this and 15 years before you do this, because ultimately that stunts people's growth, right? If they're looking to 15 years before they can have a specialty assignment, or 10 years before that, it really stunts their growth. For me, this agency, Stanislaus County, gave us opportunities early in our career to not only perform, but just pursue things that we want to do. And ultimately, when I worked in the communities of West Modesto and Salida and South Modesto, to see the underprivileged people in the communities and be able to help them and bridge those gaps, you don't get those at other agencies. you don't get that at my home agency. You don't get those opportunities to become that close knit with the community as a community deputy would. Because on patrol, I'm just going from call to call to call to call, and I'm not really hitting the root of the problem. I'm just scratching the surface. So with Stanislaus County early on in my career, they just gave us all the opportunity. And if I wanted to do something, as long as I was safe and legal, this department never told me no. Right.
That's awesome.
And that's what kept me here. That's absolutely what kept me here.
That's cool. So around 2011, 2015, where you were a school resource officer, you were out here in Patterson. That was around the time I was in high school.
Okay.
So you were in Creekside though, right?
I was at all school sites in Patterson.
Really?
So I was at the high school, I was at Creekside, and all the, from Wesley, every school site was mine.
Well, it's a good thing he didn't remember me.
Yeah.
However, you're making us feel old.
Yeah. that does make me feel old, because I do have one of our deputies that I trained in the academy. She was my 5th grade student when I was a school resource officer.
Really?
So she's a 2-year veteran, and she was my 5th grade student. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it is definitely rewarding, like you said, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is like your favorite time during your career?
Man, you're gonna make me choose here, and the reason that this is such a tough decision is because I look at it. I don't look at it selfishly. I don't look at it as, okay, when I was a detective, I had a take-home car and I had a cake schedule, because I don't look at it that way. I look at it at what level did I have the most impact on people. And that's tough for me to say, because I just met with Jose Centeno here in town yesterday that was in my criminal justice club and fishing club at the high school, that we talked about all the opportunities that he got to go and fish the San Francisco Bay with our fishing club and get on a full chartered boat, and all the memories that we had. And then I compare that to the over 600 recruits that I had through the training, through the academy, and in 19 classes that I had, and all the ability to affect their careers so early on. That's a very, very hard decision to make. And then I look at when I was a detective out here in Patterson, and the child victims that I had to unfortunately investigate some pretty egregious crimes, and then the effects that I had on their life early on. And it's a tough decision. I don't know if I could. If I felt like I chose one, I felt like I would be diminishing some of those people that I had those impacts on. But ultimately, if I had to make the decision, being a recruit training officer and starting people off in this career in the right path, ultimately, I feel like I had more impact, a greater impact, because not only did I affect the new recruits of the job, I affected how they affected other people. Right? So that tree that grows out from there, if I had to choose, being a recruit training officer was probably my most rewarding.
That's cool. Yeah, that's in line with what you're talking about, being an educator, being a teacher. You're teaching others, almost even duplicating yourself and others. Sure. Making sure that everything is right as you see it, right?
Yeah.
So what does it mean for you to return to Patterson as chief of police?
There's the decision to take the test and promote to lieutenant was a very reluctant one for me. Like, I reluctantly did that because I always consider myself a doer. And, I don't know if anybody should ever consider themselves a leader. That's for other people to determine in that person. So the decision to test for lieutenant was tough for me. And the reason I did so is so I can continue to work at the academy. However, with that in mind, there's only one other position that I ever wanted to have that you needed to be a lieutenant to have, and that is to return to the city of Patterson as the chief. I fell in love with this town. I've never been in this town until I worked here in this capacity as a peace officer. But the tight-knit community and the way that everybody knows everybody, and I can get to the root of problems, and the way that I could affect people in town here, and I just really fell in love with it. And when I come back to town, and just in the last 5 months I've come back to town, and every single place I go to, I run into somebody that I had contact with before, And now I have people opening boutiques over here, Serendipity over on 3rd Street. And she was a former student of mine in high school, right? So I get the opportunity to go see her grand opening and her ribbon cutting. And to me, coming back to Patterson and affecting this community, I know it sounds cliche. I know it does. But at the same time, I work 50 and 60 hours a week, and I don't get paid for 50 and 60 hours. I come here and I do work because I love to better this community. So I say that truly from the heart.
Yep.
So.
It definitely shows, because, I mean, you wouldn't just be doing this podcast just for because you're getting paid for it. I mean, we're
course.
not paying them, right?
Nope.
No.
No.
Of course.
So how did you get involved with Love Patterson?
I just went, and coming back out here, I work closely with the Police Activities League before I came out here. And when I came out here, I was talking to those guys because I used to oversee them, and our deputy, Augustine Torres, that oversees PAL. He says, Patterson has the best Love Patterson, or, there's Love Modesto.
Love our cities, yeah.
Everywhere. Patterson is the best. And he quickly educated me as to how much traction they get out here and how much intertwined with the community they are, and how powerful they are. And when I stepped in, he was 1,000% correct, right? So if Love Patterson is a way to connect to the community, and that's the way that the community has shown that that's how they want to connect to people, then I'm going to jump right on board with that and be a part of that the best that I can, because ultimately we have the same goal. We have this we have the same goal to intertwine with the community, and if that's a pathway and an avenue that assists the sheriff's office and Patterson Police Services with that, I'd be a fool not to. So that was kind of my attraction to Love Patterson, is how beneficial they are and how fruitful they've become compared to others. So.
Well, it's interesting because I think everyone's always looking for something to connect with, a common thing. There's nothing about Love Patterson that you can really dislike. It's all about, it's very versed to everybody, and everyone's really been great about it. So we're very blessed.
Yeah, I would agree.
We're blessed to have just everyone wanting to come together. There's not many communities out there that are like ours. We're small enough to know each other, but we're big enough still to kind of like keep out of each other's way.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. And then with all these organizations that come and collaborate together for the events, for all the things that go on here, it's very unique. It's a very unique thing we have over here. So this question is a very important one, and I want you to really think about this. Is it true that cops like donuts?
It's funny you say that, right? Because probably every other day, somebody at the office brings in donuts, and I try to shame them out of it every single day, right? But yes, I would if I had to give you an answer, yes, I would say it's true. We try to preach lifetime fitness and good health and everything else, but yep, they find their way into their diet for sure. So
listen, Love Patterson loves donuts.
Yeah.
Because I do.
Yeah.
So the cops liking donuts thing is a stereotype. It's very well known. Some cops find it humorous. Some are like, hey, stop it, right? And it's a stereotype that started in the mid 20th century. And it started and originates from the realities of police work, those late night shifts, and with not a lot of options for food, right? And really the only options were diners and donut shops.
Sure.
And those were small businesses, locally owned, and they welcomed the presence of police officers because they had full drawers at night. So they were like, yeah, come on in.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Deter that crime.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course, yeah.
So that's the type of reality that turned into that stereotype.
Sure.
And so what I want to get into is the realities of police work.
Sure.
What does a day-to-day look like for a police officer?
Yeah, well, the day-to-day for an early police officer, man, is completely 1,000% unknown. And, we have these discussions all the time, and I'll just give you personal examples of sitting in the car next to my partner, and we're got our cars pulled next to each other, and we're talking about whatever, fishing, hunting, we're talking about life in general, and our resting heart rate is obviously high, but we're sitting...
120.
Yeah, maybe not that high, right? But our heart rate's pretty low, and we're just relaxed. And in the blink of an eye, we're driving 100 miles an hour across town to catch up to our partner who's chasing a stolen vehicle of people with guns. And then we go do what people would consider the hero stuff, and we get done with that. And then 20 minutes later, we're sitting back next to each other talking about the same thing that we were talking about before. So it's that roller coaster of the unexpected that you don't know. So the daily life is you show up, you get yourself prepared every single day, just like you do. It starts with your mind. It starts getting your mindset on the right track to be safe to go home. But you get there, and it's a very routine. And cops are very unique individuals. And I learned this very early on when I decided to move my dad's stuff around the house so he didn't have his routine. Cops are very routine, and you have to be regimented. When you show up, and this is here, and this is here, and this is loaded at this time, and this gets loaded this time, and I turn my computer on here, and I load my rifle here, and it's very regimented, because if you don't do that, you miss something. And if you miss something, unfortunately, it could cost you, your partner, or a community member's life, right? So it's very much getting yourself set mentally and prepared for whatever you need to do that day, whether it be take a report of a theft, or, you know, ultimately it possibly having to take someone's life in defense of another or yourself. So your average day goes with getting prepared mentally for the worst, but remembering to put a smile on your face. And to me, cop work, once you get to the point of 15, 20 years down the road and you can look back on your early years, when you're exposed to the worst of the worst every single day, it's hard to put a smile on your face when you deal with the great people of the community. And that's one thing I always want to remind my guys. It's the 10-90 rule. 10% of the population is responsible for 90% of the crime. And cops go out there and we go, oh, I got to focus on the 10%, focus on the 10%. Because as we talked about before, the adrenaline, you want to go out and play real life cops and robbers and chase those 10%ers. But the problem is early on in our career, we start to realize that we're ignoring the 90% of the great people still in the community. And that balance, right? The average day of a cop is remembering it's our duty to take care of the 10%, but we have to cater to the 90% as well, right? And being able to shift those gears on the moment of dealing with the victim and dealing with the suspect and sometimes the same call. So that is that balance for an early stage cop is kind of a daily thing, and learning that balance is kind of tough. Yeah.
It's a very serious job because like you said, I mean, one moment you're resting and the next you're 100 miles an hour, right? It's very serious work. I mean, you could lose your life. Someone else can lose their life because of a mistake, because of non-de-escalation, anything, right? So what is it that goes through your mind when you respond to a call or when you pull someone over? What are your first thoughts?
Well, the first thoughts, it almost becomes second in nature. And when people go on ride-alongs with us, they don't see things through the lens of a cop, right? They don't see things like, for instance, you bring up a traffic stop. If I go to a traffic stop and I see the brake lights on the car are still illuminated when I get out of the car, I realize that car is not in park. So that initially tells me right there, is this person going to run? Is he going to flee? Or why is this car not in park? So and immediately my antennas go up, whereas just your average person may not see that. If I see the shoulder blades of the driver separate from the back of the car, I immediately think he's reaching underneath the seat for something, right?
Wow.
So we pick up on all these little indicators that just your average untrained person may not. To live in that level of caution, think about it. Like if you're at that level of caution all the time, it is very hard on the body. It's very hard on the heart and on the mind in and of itself to live at that level of caution. So what am I looking for at those circumstances? Number one, first and foremost, is officer safety. Is I have to control the situation, because if I lose control, unfortunately, in our career and in my career, we've had an unprecedented amount of losses at our agency. I've lost six friends, two of which were partners of mine. Like I'm talking in the car, partners with me. That I'll be honest, man, unfortunately made mistakes and it cost them their life. So to me, what do I think about? It's just that. How do I go home safe, right? And how do I get everybody in this situation safe? Not just me, not just my partner, but the people that may be in that house screaming for help. So and they come first. So if my self-preservation goes by the wayside to go in there and help those people, then that's what I think about. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah. It's difficult because, I mean, it's when you pull someone over, they're not having the best time of their life. They're not very happy to see you. Yeah. Most of the time when people wave, at a cop, they don't wave with their whole hand. They wave with one finger. You know what I mean? So like, what would you say is a way for people to kind of make you guys feel a bit safer at your job? Because I know that when I get pulled over, I lower my windows, I put my hands on the steering wheel, and I'm like, I'm not giving any reason for this to escalate any further too.
Almost trained. Like I know my parents were like, this is what you do, this is how it happens, blah blah blah. So like you have the respect. So I mean, where's the disconnect? I guess.
Yeah, I guess the disconnect is it's the upbringing, right? Nobody teaches you in school how to get pulled over. Right? How to get pulled over. I think it comes with proper parenting. Like you said, it's a great example. I think that, and we appreciate that, right? When we get up to the car and the lights are illuminated and your hands are on the steering wheel, we appreciate that. So we are already at a lower level, right? I guess that's our that's our job as law enforcement. We should be educating the public on how to properly act during a traffic stop. I think that I just come up with a great idea.
There you go.
I think that's a great idea because
Right?
the kids, man, some of the new generation
Yeah, I think
might not know.
right. Like in driver's training, it would be an excellent opportunity
yeah.
at the high school for us as law enforcement to say this is proper etiquette when you get pulled over.
Yeah,
How to
that's a
interact.
great idea.
Yeah, I think.
I remember the first time I got pulled over. I was nervous as hell.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you, I was nervous as hell. I was shaking. The officer was like, "Hey, you been nervous, man? What's going on?" And they just kind of give
Well,
like,
it
"What's going on
escalates
here?"
things, yeah.
Sure. I mean, when you're nervous, we pick up on the nerves, and we don't know if you're nervous just because you're nervous from us, or if you're nervous because you got a assault rifle under the seat,
Yeah.
right? So it just raises the overall anxiety, and the way to refute that, and one of the things that I try to do with my guys out here is I try to expose my guys to as much positive engagement with the community. I'll give you the Christmas party, for example.
Okay.
The Christmas parade on December 7th downtown here. I really forced my guys. This is going to be it, guys. You guys are getting out of the office and we're coming out to this parade, and I'm having a full hands on deck. The more exposure that the community has to us in those positive, and more importantly, the more exposure our guys, our troops have to the good part of the community.
Yeah.
Overall, I think lowers those anxieties, gets people comfortable. It takes it just rips the Band-Aid off. There's no more having to feel like this uncomfort. So to me, I think the more I expose our guys to those positive moments, the more, I don't want to say relaxed because it pushes off of complacency, but the more control they feel. They feel more in control when they are relaxed and not anxious and don't have that anxiety, and they're not picking up on your anxiety, and they can calm your anxiety down. So I think that's for me, that's huge, is exposing them to the good part of the community.
And the community feels that too, because I mean, you're also humanizing yourselves,
Sure.
right? Because now no longer we're not seeing you guys as just guys with badges and guns.
Sure.
We're in aviators and all that, right? We're seeing you guys are peace officers.
Sure.
You guys are here to help us.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
So that's super cool that you're pushing for that.
Absolutely.
Because we don't see that. At least I haven't seen that in a lot of other cities.
Yeah.
So how do your officers handle the mental and emotional toll of the job?
Yeah, that's a tough time, man. I'll tell you this, man. In my tenure and having trained so many guys in the academy, the most volatile time, high-risk time for a deputy and a new officer in general in law enforcement is that 2 to 5 year period. Once in that 2 to 5 year period, they're typically, just by the way it lands, they're on graveyard shift because of their low seniority, and they are absolutely engulfed by that 10% that we talked about, and their mentality changes, and they don't cope well. How is a 23-year-old kid, I say kid, adult, but a 23-year-old gonna cope with this amount of stress? And unfortunately, sometimes they choose to unhealthy avenues, whether it's alcohol or surrounding themselves with only cops, right? And they only hang out with cops because that's all they feel comfortable with, and they forget their friends that they had when they grew up, and they push their significant others away. I've seen it all too often. But how do we deal with it? The Stanislaus County Sheriff's Office has an award-winning. It received the best wellness program in the nation, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, we received that award, I think, 2 years ago. Our wellness program is pushed towards not only mental or physical wellness, which we have physical fitness incentives. We don't have it written in our MOUs, but all of our supervisors and managers allow our guys to work out on duty. We have collaborative efforts to work out. We host workout events. So we keep our bodies healthy, which releases a lot of stress and everything else. We also have a psychologist that helps with that. In my day, if 20 years ago, if I were to raise my hand and said I want to see a psychologist, I would have been chastised and called weak by my peers, you know. But now we've gotten away from that stigma. So they engage in things outside of work that keep them healthy. When I first started, you didn't take a day off, right? You didn't take a day off. I don't care how much vacation time you had. That's why I have literally 999 hours of vacation, because I grew up in the time where you just don't take time off.
Wow.
But now these kids are taking time off, and to us older guys are like, hey, you take too much time off. But who's got it right? They got it right, or we're the unhealthy ones that are now dealing with stresses later on in life. But no, they're actually taking their time off, and I do everything to make sure that I'll work a patrol shift if my guy needs a day off. And I have, and I will to continue that, right? If my guys need a day off to be healthy, by all means.
Yeah.
So.
That's good that the department is having that shift from like just you got to be tough, you got to be a man. You don't have mental health issues. That's you're weak if you have that. And moving into more of an era like no, you have to be able to be mentally sharp in order to do your job correctly, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
So there's this ancient warrior, poet, and philosopher by the name of Mike Tyson.
Got it. Big fan.
Yeah, he has a saying: everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Amen.
Officers go through training, but reality can be unpredictable. There's training in theory, but reality is very different. How does the department get you guys to think quickly on your feet? Is that inherited, or is that something that can be taught?
Great question. And I think I have an answer for you here. Great question. A lot of people criticize, our academy is a high stress academy. What do I mean by that? Just like you see in the old movies of drill instructors with the sharp hat and yelling and screaming. Listen, there's a reason for that. It's to induce that amount of stress on people so they can function properly in that level of stress. That is induced upon our recruits very early. Literally, what we call day one, hour one is for a reason. And I've been through a lot of them because we induce the stress and we get them comfortable over 20 weeks of living in that stress. And we have these things, these level of alertness that I kind of alluded to earlier. If you could just imagine condition white, you're sitting at your house on your couch, you're watching your favorite show, you're sipping on your favorite beverage, there's not a care in the world. Condition white. You go out into the community and you walk around on the street, you're condition yellow because you got to be worried about traffic and pedestrian signs and any type of caution that you may see. So you're condition yellow. Condition orange. Let's say there's some type of verbal disturbance happening across the way while you're at the bar, you're hanging out, and you see two people getting into it. You're aware, your back's kind of moving to the wall. There's something going on over there you don't want to be involved in. Condition red, that fight is going on across the bar. It's happening. You're not involved, but it's happening. There's danger. And self-preservation goes in. And then there's condition black. Condition black, you're actively involved in your frontal lobe, so to speak, has shut down, and you're acting out of primal instinct. What we do in an academy is, I've quoted this many times, is we train condition black. When you go condition black, you will revert to your training. You will revert to your primal instinct of what you were taught, whether that's preservation of life, saving lives, or saving your own life, and unfortunately having to take a life. But if you're in that situation, training trains that condition black so that you can still function without panic, without the fight, flight, or any type of freeze type of response. Training and training that condition black is how we get our guys up to speed on that. And there is a moment where you have to push them out of the nest and can do nothing but hope, right? Just like parents do, you have to, hey man, this is your world. You have all the tools, man. Go show what you need to do. So that's kind of how that's our mindset.
Definitely. And this is like with any organization that requires high stress response, right? Because I used to be a volunteer firefighter, and so like I had these type of training. They would say that you don't rise to the level of your expectation, you fall to the level of your training.
Oh yeah.
And your most basic training is going to be your muscle memory.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because I remember my very first call, it was a structure fire, and I put on my bunker gear so many times, but when I arrived on scene, I was putting my gloves on my head. I was messing up so much because it wasn't ingrained in me.
Yeah.
So that training in, what is it, black?
Training condition black, yeah.
Condition black is so important because you're going to just, your brain shuts off.
Oh, absolutely.
It really does. So it's just muscle memory right there.
Yeah.
So then the types of trainings that you guys receive, you obviously receive like de-escalation training, vehicle pursuit, and like BLS, things like that. What would you say is one of the most important ones that you guys receive?
Probably the most important nowadays is use of force training. Use of force has been mandated in de-escalation, right? De-escalation. It is ever evolved. If you can imagine my dad being a cop in the 80s and 90s, and then me being a cop in the early 2000s, and now in 2025, these guys have a totally different mindset. Everything's changed. So I could legally do things in the 2000s that they can't do today. And case law and the migration of how we deal with mental illness. So to me, de-escalation, coordination, we get that every 2 years at the office. And on top of that, we get that in advanced officer training. So almost every year, you're at least mandated at minimum to go to those trainings. On top of the other trainings that people choose to go to for de-escalation and use of force experts. So to me, I think the most direct related to the public is the use of force and de-escalation and the changing of times that we've had. So that's definitely the ones. Yeah.
I would say that's probably one of the most important ones because, I mean, if a situation is preventable, I mean, by all means, de-escalate as much as you can so you could prevent that from happening.
Absolutely.
What about, do you guys do monthly trainings for anything else like day-to-day?
Oh, yeah. You know, our training center back in 2023 received the California Commissioned Peace Officers Standing and Training post that oversees all training within the state of California. Our training division received the top training division in the entire state of California. So our training division is very much advanced. They push out monthly, weekly trainings to the troops and mandate these throughout. And our department spends more money on training than probably close to any other department in the entire state.
Wow.
Right? So, and we see the product of it, right? And I think that spawned about, you know, we started to see a dip in our performance. Unfortunately, we lost some people, and we really rallied behind the fact that we need to better train our guys. So, yeah, we get constant training. Training's pushed out. I just went to a webinar today on de-escalation of mental health issues, right? So we constantly push those out.
That's good.
Nice.
That's what I love to hear, right? So we're talking all this serious stuff, but what about, like, what's the most rewarding part about being a police officer?
Oh, without, I've already touched on it, man, is to see these success stories for me. You know, it's not about the accommodations and all this other stuff. To me, it's dealing with and seeing the people that I've had the impacts on be successful in life. I just mentioned in the other day, Mr. Centeno, he was a twin brother in high school. When I was out here, he was in the fishing club, him and his brother, Ernesto Centeno.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know them, but they're very nice people. They live over
them
here in the side of town off of Walnut, and we actually sponsored their family one year for our Patterson Police presence.
Wow.
Spent a lot of time with those guys, and Ernie is a peace officer in Santa Clara. And to hear from him that and to hear the amount of impacts that he had, that I had on him early, and he pursued this career, and then just talking to his brother yesterday, we reconnected yesterday, and for him to tell me he built his own house over here on the other side of town. Wow. He took advantage of some program that he was able to buy the house and at a subsidized price and built it himself, especially with the handicap that he has. That, you know, when you know him, you know, right? To me, that's the most rewarding. And there's hundreds of those stories. So I always reconnect with the people that I had contacts with. To me, to be honest with you, I don't know how much I make. I don't take care of finances. That's not what I do. If I want to go fishing, I hope I got gas money. Yeah. You know, that's the ultimate paycheck to me, is to see that come to fruition. And the more I get to relive that, the more I get paid, and the wealthier I am. That's the way I look at it.
That's
Definitely.
awesome.
Yeah, because law enforcement, they deeply impact the community. And I just like to share an account that I had read of a recent town hall meeting during the Meet the Candidates night, when you guys were being invited to see who was going to be the next police chief. And so I'm going to read this. So this happened during a town hall meeting. So I'm not going to say the name. I'm just going to say the community member. So this community member spoke about her encounters with Hill as an SRO when she attended school. She said in 2008, her family relocated to Patterson to try to get her brother out of gangs. In 2011, she met Hill. Even though they moved us away from the gangs, she said as she began crying, the domestic violence never stopped at home until Casey arrived at Creekside. The individual, who was now a campus supervisor at Patterson High School, said that she ate lunch with Hill in his office for the longest time, and he never once questioned Casey. Thank you for giving me that peace that I needed as a child, because the domestic violence never stopped. Thank you for watching me grow up. Thank you for being my mentor and leading me to work the couple years at the sheriff's office. Even though the sheriff's office wasn't a path that she decided to take, she said he'll never stop supporting her. I thank God that you are our SRO.
And the whole room was in tears.
Oh yeah.
I left out that part.
Oh
but
no,
yeah.
I was like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, tissue.
Yeah, for sure. Right, like that story. That's the paycheck I'm talking about, right? Like you can't. That's in no incentive. That's in no bonus. That's in no. You know, I'm glad that she took that opportunity. I didn't ask her to. Those are the mentorship levels that I still love, right? And I said it sounds cliche, but yeah, that was a prime example. And you want to say that there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd, and I'm not exempt from that, you know. So it was a very heartwarming event, and I still keep in contact with many people like that, right? And I didn't know. I didn't know I had that impact on her. I just continued to be that sounding board and have that conversation with people like that. So I think that's what people need. I think ultimately humans have this rare ability to really know who cares about them genuinely.
Yes.
You know, and you can feel it that this person genuinely cares about my well-being. So and I do. I genuinely care about their well-being. And when they pick up on that and they see that and they recognize that, then, I consider myself wealthy,
Definitely. Switching gears. So we're going to be talking more about the crime and safety challenges specifically to Patterson. So we know that there is Highway 5. We know there's Highway 33. So there's a lot of vehicle accidents, right? How do you guys plan to respond to those? Like maybe it's a multi-vehicle accident. How do you guys respond to those, or do you guys have a plan?
Well, our first priority, number one, is preservation of life. If we get some type of a call of a severe traffic accident, unfortunately, we've all had to see these fatalities that we need to get there and preserve life the best that we can. So preservation of life is a number one. But then there's also a very necessary element of necessary law enforcement action when it comes to if the driver's drunk, if the driver's attempting to flee, if there's some type of, maybe this wasn't a traffic collision or it was an intentional event where somebody rammed somebody with a car. We don't know those things yet. So we have to balance necessary law enforcement action as well as preservation of life. So that's going to be our top priority, is making sure people can get the care that they need. We know that we are on the west side. We are away from medical facilities, right? And that's why our guys are trained to start that airship out here quickly, so we can get a medical transport through the air to cut that drive time down for sure. So preservation of life, number one. The investigation into the primary collision factor, that's last, right? We'll figure that out when things are safe. Blocking traffic, make sure there's no ancillary accidents as a result of that. So just safety, and then we can investigate further. It's kind of our priorities. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And up to what level are you guys trained in with the life support? Is it basic life support, first aid, or advanced CPR?
Yeah, we obviously perform CPR. We're sometimes we're very quick to clear in the paramedics that are obviously in fire department that is more trained than us, but we get a basic level of life support. We do perform and show proficiency in first aid and CPR every 2 years at our agency, so we stay fresh on our skills. We're not going to be, performing emergency tracheotomies in the field or anything like that, but we are trained enough to get stabilized until we can get people of greater medical knowledge than us into the field. So basic first aid and CPR is what we get.
Cool. And I just wanted to highlight that just because there's a common misconception that police officers just respond to robberies and burglaries. They don't know anything else. Firefighters, the same thing. Only fires, nothing else. And ambulance is just ambulance, right? Well, they kind of are. But you're trained to at least wait until there's a higher level of life support to go in there, right?
Yeah.
And so switching over to another topic, there has been, I don't know what it is, but there's been an increasing number of threats to our schools. How is the department handling these threats, whether they're real or fake?
Yeah, great question, man. We've in the last 2 years, we've really upped our game at the sheriff's office through our what we call our Threat Assessment Center. STAC is the acronym, Stanislaus Threat Assessment Center. So we have 2 detectives now and a sergeant that are full-time assigned to these types of threats, whether they're, like you say, not real or somebody posts on social media and just gets on a fake account and says, I'm going to do this at this school. Our guys are extremely quick to figure those out, to point those out, to do search warrants to find out the location of where those were done and who the author was. And we are very, very, we are a lot better than when I was a school resource officer, because I remember pulling my hair out as a school resource officer, figuring out where this came from and just hoping.
Yeah.
And I go to school the next day, and I can't blame parents for being panicked. I mean, you don't realize how much you can love somebody until you have a kid, right? So I don't blame them. But how do we stop that? And the way that we've gotten ahead of it at the sheriff's office is we've assigned it to our threat assessment center full-time detectives that's their job. They have literally spreadsheets of problem individuals that are known to do this, and we make contact with them on a weekly basis, sometimes a monthly basis, depending on their level of threat. And it's a phone call for our school resource officer now to the threat assessment center. Hey, I need this student put on this list, and we're going to call and offer them the support that they need, not just enforcement, but we can get them linked with our care program and all these different mental health programs through the threat assessment center. So we have become leaps and bounds in that realm, and in this social media era where it's so quick to induce that fear. And now we have caught up to how quick it is to induce. We can actually extinguish that fear pretty quick with our threat assessment center. So,
Nice.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that advanced. I thought it's a very proactive approach rather than being reactive.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which I think back in the day is a little bit more of that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah,
we're, like you said, there's leaps and bounds in this.
sure. Sure.
And then as far as the community engagement, I know that you touched on PAL, but what other programs, events that you guys do to kind of engage with the community?
Yeah, well, perfect opportunity. February 18th, we're having our Coffee with a Cop here at the local Starbucks at Warden Sperry. We're going to spend 2 hours there from 9 to 11 just getting to know people and having conversations and fruitful conversations. And inherently, they're going to be about law enforcement and crime and all that. But I just really want to force my guys to get out there and just have normal conversations with people, right? And we can and just to break bread with people, sit across the table and have conversation. It's twofold, right? The community gets to learn us, and to me, I re-invite our guys to know who the community of Patterson is too, right? So that's going to be coming up very soon here. The Christmas parade for me was my first opportunity to just dive full in. I don't know if you guys caught it. We had the Grinch that stole Christmas that was sneaking through the downtown. And
Took our tree.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. He didn't. He didn't.
Yeah. So we had the Grinch, and it, very proactive in the schools. I still work with the schools. The Patterson Police Presence, which we continue to do out here for about the last 13 years. There's a lot of things in my brain that are yet to come. We got Little League coming up, opening ceremonies for Little League, and if the old Chiefs got to get out there and take some hacks and try to put one out of the yard, that's what I plan on doing, So just those types of everyday events, right? I don't want to make it seem like we have to have these grandiose events and I have to roll out the SWAT truck and the bomb truck and everything. Over time, you're going to see us out there more and more and more.
It's the little things. It really is. I mean, that's how we've grown. It's not the one volunteer day. It's all the other things that have built the momentum.
So. Yeah. I mean, that's how you take over that mentality. It's just the small things. Yeah.
Definitely. That Coffee with a Cop sounds super cool. And I want people to know that it's just Coffee with a Cop. It's nothing else. They're not going to be doing vehicle inspections and stuff like that. Just like I don't know if you've ever seen the CHP when they have a trucker appreciation week. They're like, come on in for a free lunch and a level 1 inspection.
Oh, no, stop it.
No. Well, that's what I feel like when I go through the scales.
Touche.
Yeah.
Yes. But so transparency is a key priority for the community. How will you ensure that the public stays informed about the safety issues? Because we know from Patterson Neighborhood Watch, hey, what are those sounds? Did you guys hear that? The people want to know, right? So how is it that you guys will kind of like be a bit transparent with the community?
Sure. I could bring a great example up from this last weekend. I mean, I started to people reached out to me and said that there was indications that ICE was working in Patterson and working in Stanislaus County and on Highway 33. And then ICE was at Walmart and ICE was doing raids in town. And I jumped all over that very quickly. And I put a press release together to kind of distinguish that. And because of that, there was protests that were starting in, and that's fine. People have that right to assemble, and we're not here to interfere with that. but I wanted to do my best to put the truth out there. We had no indications that there was any operations of ICE in Stanislaus County or on Highway 33 or at Walmart in Patterson. There was one point of clarification that I needed to make, that our deputies acting at the request of the city were contacting illegal food vendors that were after hours that code enforcement couldn't deal with. And that got construed on the social media
Makes sense.
that ICE was taking people into custody, and it happened to be at CVS, which is in the Walmart parking lot. To me, I wanted to get the truth out there right away and be transparent. And to me, my guys were driving past the protest and they were waving at it with all fingers, right? And they were very supportive. And they weren't protesting the sheriff's office. It's your right to protest and assemble. I get it. Do it peacefully. Get your message across. But my guys were texting me throughout the day. Hey, they're just waving at us. Everything's good. Everything's good to go, right?
Well, that's where that connection comes, right? Because they know the faces and they're not worried, you know. So
absolutely. And we're not going to interfere with your guys' right. As long as you stay peaceful and you stay, lawful, please, by all means, do your thing. And we support you in supporting your constitutional rights. So,
but I think that's great to put it out there and calm the fears of people. And, it goes small to large fears, but just putting the press release out and let them know it's not what they think. That's good.
I was really impressed by how fast the response was from the department and agency on calming the people's fears with that video. Who was that? That was it was Jeff
Sheriff Dirksey.
So he was just nipping it right there before it even just turns into a giant fire. So I was really impressed by that. But that's super cool that you guys will have that level of transparency. Sure. I'm sure that in this social media world where everything just moves quick, you guys just got to be just a tad bit quicker, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be tough though, man. Social media is just
and everything can be taken out of context. We live in a clip world. They don't see the whole interview. They just see a little thing and they can construe it in any type of way they want.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what about the future of Patterson policing? What initiatives or improvements can residents expect under your leadership?
Sure. When I came in to the town hall meeting that we spoke of earlier, I was asked that question: what would you like to change? And it's not so much that I would like to change something because I think something was going wrong, but to me, I need better utilization of our community resource deputies. And a community resource deputy needs to be out there in the field, making those everyday contacts, creating these relationships with people through informal if they got to go to the library and build Legos with kids, right? And one of this, I know my guys give me hell all the time because I just sit and think, and I'm like, how can I want to have a video game tournament against kids in town, right?
Yeah.
They give them the opportunity, right? I did that when I was in Salida. I got up there and I was like, I'm going to beat these kids, man. First round, I'm eliminated by a 6-year-old at Super Smash Brothers, right? And they had a blast.
Man, these kids though with video games.
I shouldn't have signed up, right? I shouldn't have signed up. But for me, pushing the community involvement, and my goal would be ultimately to the community polices itself with the help of the sheriff's office. There's a bond there between the sheriff's office and the Patterson Police Services that when things go awry, and they always do in law enforcement, they get construed different. Like you said, we live in this clip generation, that the community comes out and says, that doesn't sound like the sheriff's office. Right. That doesn't sound like our police department. And then they look for ways to defend us. That's the ultimate goal, right? And as opposed to people just immediately saying, I saw them do this last week and I saw them do that last week. And once we start to build those bridges amongst that group, so for me, my community resource deputies are very, very influential, as well as my school resource officer. There's going to be a huge push to build those relationships that you can't quantify, right? You can't quantify those things. So that for me is my top priority. And trust me, I'm all about enforcement. I'm all about taking bad guys to jail. I'm all about that stuff because ultimately you can see the results in that and crime stats go down. But you're going to see a build in our community relations. That's one of my top priorities for sure.
And as far as like because Patterson doesn't actually have like an established police department. It's the sheriff's officers that come out here. Is the city thinking about bringing more officers in, giving you guys more resources out here, or what do you think is going on in that aspect?
Yeah, well, inherently, nationwide, you look at typically a 1 to 25 or 1 to 1,000 ratio. So for every 1,000 residents, you have one peace officer. Currently, we're sitting about 25,000. I have 25 deputies, right?
Okay.
So if we start increasing our levels, we're at bare minimum for our levels right now. So as we continue to grow as a city and residents and the amount of houses that we have here, then absolutely you're going to see a growth in the resources here in town, right? And I know there's always this conversation and a talk of, Patterson needs its own police department, and I don't argue that. If Patterson gets to the point financially where they get to the point in size, ultimately they want to get to 70,000 people over the next 15 years. If that's the route they want, they absolutely deserve their own police department, right? So my goal is that I'm not here to fight that. I'm here to get Patterson set up on the best foot necessary. That if that does come to fruition, it's a seamless transition, right? But I'm not going to be here for 20 years. I'm not going to be here for 15 years when that may come to fruition. But I'm going to be here for the next 4. I know that, right? And I'm going to make that next 4 make it feel like it's their Patterson Police Department with Sheriff's Office insignia, right? So I really want them to make it feel like this is their hometown team, their hometown enforcement, and that's what I want to make it seem like to them, for sure.
Love it.
That's the biggest thing, is because the city has to fund all that stuff for the police department, and maybe the police department won't have as many toys and gadgets as the sheriff's office would, right?
For sure.
Because I've seen that you guys have a variety of things, cool toys and stuff like that. I think I was out there in Waterford one time, and I even saw a officer with a Jeep Wrangler as a All right, so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, I don't see that out here though. But
Okay, so I have a Jeep Wrangler, and it's very slow. So I don't know what you're talking about.
They usually don't go very fast. They're in our special vehicles operations unit. They do the Frank Raines Park, and they do the
Okay,
Drive
that
parks
makes
and
more
stuff
sense.
like that.
I'm like, mine's not fast.
Yeah, no, I have a Jeep too, and it's not fast. It's as aerodynamic as a brick.
So did they put the ducks on your guys' Jeep? Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
What's the deal with that? What's the story behind that?
It's like if you like the way it looks or what, like the mods on it, you get ducked.
You get ducked.
You get a little ducked. Yeah.
You get ducked. They also have the Jeep Wave. Every time
Oh
see
yeah,
a Jeep,
you have to.
wave?
You have to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got ducked.
Yeah.
Sounds like a mistyping on a text message,
Yep.
but you got ducked.
Well, sometimes you feel that way too,
Yeah.
because let me tell you, put wheels on it, or like mine has a water leak right now. It's like a river inside of it. So love to have it.
Yeah.
I love and I hate my Jeep, but
Amen.
And that's one of the other things that I think Patterson residents need to realize is by contracting with the sheriff's office. Remember that unit we just talked about with our threat assessment center? Free, right? It's free services, right? We have detectives that are working in Modesto that oversee this for the entire county, and Patterson gets that for free. If right now a call for service happened and I started the SWAT truck out here, it's free. It's coming free, right? Homicide in town, getting the homicide team for free, right? All these different resources that come from the sheriff's office, where canine, our drone team, our dive team, our Ute bomb team. If there's a suspicious package, you're getting it for free, and that's a huge luxury that the city has. The amount of resources that the sheriff's office can offer. So that as far as bang for buck, I think Patterson gets a pretty good deal with the amount of resources. That we can
definitely,
offer.
because you guys are so huge.
Yeah.
So separate from the policing and the department and everything, what would you like to see come to Patterson, either a business, a program, or anything?
With the growth of Patterson, I've noticed is even over my past 20 years, is I've seen expansions of residents in different residential areas. I would like to see recreation and infrastructure hit Patterson. I would like to keep people's money in Patterson. I would like to see I say business names. I'd like to see a Costco out here. I'd like to see a movie theater out here. I'd like to see a minor league baseball team pop up out here. I'm speaking just, I would like to see some type of entertainment for Patterson so that they don't have to go to Turlock. They don't have to go to Modesto. They don't have to go to Tracy. And for that, I would like to see, as we grow as in population, schools, medical facilities, those things need to grow before we start adding just a bunch of housing, right? So the infrastructure of the city is what I would like to see, and to keep Patterson in Patterson, keep the taxpayers' money of Patterson in Patterson, so that they see their tax dollars come to fruition in their own town through sales tax and stuff like that. So I would like to see Patterson become self-sufficient in that realm financially, right?
Yeah.
I think everyone agrees with that.
Yeah.
I really like those, and we're just collecting data right now. Over the past couple of podcasts, we're asking everybody, like, what would you like to see come to Patterson? You know, because ideas just kind of bounce off each other, and it actually
all the
becomes,
same.
you know, it becomes reality. And so as we're coming close to the end, sorry, what's your message to Patterson residents as you take on this leadership role?
You know, give us the opportunity to build a very strong working relationship. I know that there's some opinions out there, and I can't change everybody's opinion, but we are willing to work with the city, and we are willing to work with the community, and to give us that opportunity. Allow us into your lives to have that positive interaction. I know that there's a cliche. I know that there's a stigma of law enforcement, and it's hard for us to get over. But at the same time, we will extend that olive branch, and we would ask that they receive it, you know, and that will build so many different relationships. And unfortunately, as you mentioned earlier, like, we have to enter people's lives sometimes at their worst moment. So we are already behind the curve when it comes to establishing trust and a relationship. And so just allow us to try to work into your lives and give that positive reinforcement into your life. And my promise is that my guys are going to do that. And I hold a very high standard. I've told my workers when I got into the job out here, they know I've trained almost all the guys that work for us out here. They all came through our academy. So they know my level of expectation. And I have a high expectations, and I do not apologize for those. And I will not waver from those one bit. So I was very clear with that. I considered myself a high performer, and because of that, I have high expectation of them. And they will be held accountable to that level of expectation. And to this point, I've been nothing but satisfied with the amount of work and effort that I've seen in them. It's been a breath of fresh air to see. And if I can just help direct it in that manner, I would just ask the community to give us that opportunity, right? And let us, you know, I always had a saying is underestimate me. That'll be fun. You know what I mean? That'll be fun.
I love it.
So I really just ask they just accept us with open arms. So.
Absolutely. I love the message that you're giving out to the residents out there. It's very it calms a lot of people's nerves on what you plan on doing. So continuing with the legacy of police officers, how does someone become a sheriff, police officer, or anything like that? Yeah,
you know, number one, it starts with an ambition.
Okay.
Right. It starts with an ambition. We lost that in 2020 when we went through our down times and law enforcement was looked at and cast it on a very negative light. Our recruitment numbers dropped. My academy classes dropped to the mid 20s. You just didn't get that ambition. You didn't see the people that were weighing whether they wanted to do this job or not. But then at the end of the day, it's that ambition. Ultimately, you want to do the fun stuff. You want to, be a cop and go play cops and robbers. But at the same time, really look through that and have that ambition to change people's lives. And I've told this 110% to everyone about. Do you, as a cop, do you have the ability to change the world? And everyone of them shakes their head no. And you're underestimate your ability, because you can change somebody's world for the better or for the worse. You have that amount of authority and power, and that's a huge responsibility. So to have that ambition, first and foremost, and then get your education. I know, whether even if it's through the military, like I'm not saying just you have to go to get a bachelor's degree or anything like that. But if you can find some type of upper education, whether in the military or college, get your education. Nowadays, not everybody can retire at 50 years old like I can. It's a 57-year retirement scale. So people are going to be doing this job for 37 years. I don't know how they're going to do this job for 37 years, but yeah. So take the time to get your education and put the rocks in the tank first, so to speak, and get your foundation. And then keep your background clean. I know it's hard. As a kid. I was there. We were all there to make those decisions. But you got to do yourself the favor and don't make the decisions that are going to disqualify you later, right? Because we all go through those times where we make stupid decisions. Thankfully, none of mine were to the level that I was eliminated from being a peace officer. So get your education, have that ambition, keep your background clear, and then it's as simple as hitting enter on a application online and buy into it. It ain't easy. The academy ain't supposed to be easy. The job ain't easy. So just buy in and apply. And you got to go through the testing process, the physical agility testing, the written testing. You got to go through a background process, a psychological examination, a physical examination, an oral board examination. And then you got to make it. That's just to get your ticket to the dance into the academy, where you got to pass 38 tests. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
In this generation, there's an easy button for everything, right? Mm-hmm. You wanna order food, you ain't gotta step outside. You know what I mean? You don't have to go talk to nobody at Starbucks anymore. I mobile order my stuff. I walk up, pick it up, and leave. So there's no easy button to be in this job. That's a fact, and that's can deter people sometimes. Mm-hmm. It took me 4 or 5 years to sit in my patrol car and look at that radio and go, whatever comes across that radio, I'm comfortable in handling. And that level of anxiety, man, for 5 years, that's not easy, man.
Yeah,
that's not easy. So.
Definitely. So we definitely thank you for coming on this podcast. Our final question: mm-hmm. Why do you love Patterson?
It's the people. It's the people, man. It's the gal that you talked about earlier, the guys that I talked about earlier, the impact that I have on the people, the ability to serve the people that have done me well. Like, I have a lot of friends here. I never ever thought that I would ever. Because you're taught not to, especially, you're taught not to intertwine your personal life with your professional life, because it could get you ultimately killed sometimes. Right? Mm-hmm. And that level of distrust in the community was poisonous. It was absolutely poisonous. When I came to Patterson and people welcomed me with open arms, one of my best friends in life I met when I was working at the school district. Mm-hmm. We went to Disneyland together. We fished together constantly in town, or a year, and he still lives in town. He works for the school district. He's one of my best friends in life. And there's so many different other people like that welcomed me with open arms, and all I would like to do is give them back what they gave me. Mm-hmm. So that's why Patterson for me is just so, for lack of a better term, like, it's intimate, like everybody knows everybody in town, but at the same time, like you said, you can still have your own separate life and then come together when you want to.
Yeah.
Right? To me, Patterson does it. I know, it's a conglomerate here in town. You have the Bay Area influence, you have the old time people in Patterson, mm-hmm. And I get that part of it. But to me, the people that I get to work with, I can't wait for the Apricot Fiesta.
Yeah.
Because I can walk around town and see all the people that I like and enjoy, and that's why nobody wants to work the Fiesta with me, because I have to stop every 5 feet and say hi to somebody.
Nice.
So.
Well, Love Patterson Day is coming.
Yeah, Love Patterson Day.
April 26th.
April 26th.
You're gonna be there.
Plug.
Yeah. You have your guys there.
Oh, absolutely.
So they will be there.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, for your service.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage the listeners to go ahead and follow what the Stanislaus County Sheriffs are doing online. If you see them on the street, shake their hand, get to know the officers here, because they are people, right? And I want to go ahead and just ask that if you guys are watching, subscribe to the channel and make sure that you guys are following along with Love Patterson, because we're doing a lot of good things here. And so, again, thank you for your time.
Yes.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, we're good.
That was awesome.